Well, we'll go ahead and get started here. My name's Brian Peck. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Mazevo. It's great to see everybody. For those of you that, if this is your first Mazevo Connect webinar, we do these every month. And we just do it as a way to kind of bring everybody together, share ideas on different topics, things like that. So today we're going to be talking about the communication tools in Mazevo. And it's going to be us here on the Mazevo team that are presenting to you all today. So we're just going to go through a few tools. Some of them you may already know how they work, and maybe a few you don't. So we're going to share those ideas. We do have you all muted right now, but we do like these things to be interactive. So throughout the presentation, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. We will be watching the chat for questions. And then at the end too, we should have a few minutes. We can also unmute you then if you'd prefer to just ask your question that way. So we'll save a few minutes for that. But anyways, that's the plan here. I'll introduce, we've got several members of the Mazevo team here on the call with me. I've got Wendy Newland, who is one of our onboarding specialists here, along with Joe Finley. So they're both joining us. Claire DeGroat, who works with me on the sales team, and then Dean Evans, our CEO, of course. So anyways, with that said, I think we'll just go ahead and jump right into it today. Dean's going to lead us off here and go through a couple of features, and we'll just get things going. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And
all right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to show you a couple new things that we put in Mazevo here in the last couple of releases. So let me share my screen here. And I'm going to be jumping around as both an admin and a requester, and that's why I've got two browsers here. So I'll kind of do this. So I've logged in here. So one of the things that's going to kind of in the theme of communications is a way for your requesters to get a hold of you directly. We get a lot of emails and support tickets from your customers, right? Your students and your users, because something might be wrong in the system, and their account may not be configured. And so they don't really know where to go. So they'll dig around until they find the Mazevo knowledge base, and then they'll send us a message saying, hey, I can't get in. And it's like, well, we can't really help. And so I know some of you on the call have seen messages, hey, Susie needs help getting her account configured. So in that regard, what we've done is we've added a couple little features here. And the first thing would be, if you're a global administrator, you can come up here to account settings, and this is in your system today. So what we've put is this little requester support message in, and I'm going to show you where this shows up. But you can type pretty much anything in here you want. You can make it as pretty as you want. But this is a way for your users to contact you at your reservations office, if you will, right? Rather than have them come to us, because we just don't know who to get them back to. So it'll help provide better support on your end to your customers. But you can put this message in here. So the idea behind that is, and I'm going to flip this browser. So on this screen, I'm a requester. So it shows up in two places. One is right here at the top of the screen. They have this need help. And so if they click that message is going to show up and be displayed to them. Okay, so whatever you typed in the account settings here is going to be available and displayed right here. So that's one area. And then the second area that we've kind of worked on, again, we're trying to help you help us. When a requester, if their account is not configured properly, and what that means is if they don't have any organizations that they can request for, okay, so maybe they came in through SSO, the account setup, but they don't have any groups that they're associated to. What would happen normally is under this add new request, they would have an issue and it would just stop them. So we've kind of cleaned that up a little bit. So now when you go in here, if my account's not configured properly as a requester, we come up with this message that says, hey, your account's not configured. And then we also append that message that you type in there. So that'll just help your users get a hold of you quicker to manage some of that stuff. So anybody have any thoughts on that? You can put those in the chat if you want. It's that requester support message that we're putting in here, that's global throughout the system. So any global administrator can come in and manage that message there. But it's one message for the entire system for all of your tenants, if you will, or all of your users in a tenant. Now, I know a couple of you have multiple tenants, and this would be for each one of those tenants. Well, Jane, in your case, this message is going to be specific to each one of your tenants. So you can direct somebody that's going to, the student center to one area and to another, to athletics somewhere else, if you will. So this is specific to each tenant. So I know that several on the call have multiple tenants here. So hopefully that answers that. So. Okay, another feature in kind of under the umbrella of communications is under reports. We've heard a lot of people that have come from EMS. They want to be able to send scheduled reports to their users. And we never really had that feature. We kind of took a different approach on that, and that is send them a link one time and then let them click that link or bookmark it. And every time they click it, they'll get the most up-to-date information for that. So, but we heard it enough that we went in and changed published reports. So just kind of orient you here, published reports, whenever you create a report, right? Let me go back here. Let's say the event list. Whenever I run a report and I do my filtering here, I can run it or I can publish it. And when you publish it, it saves up under published reports. So if you ever need to run that report again, you can just simply come over here and click on it and it'll run. So and then you can make these reports either private to yourself or available to other people to get into published reports. So what the next thing is, when you have these reports here, you can send an email link to somebody, and that when in that link they can click the link in that email and just run the report. But if you want to kind of force feed them, and this is kind of the EMS thing, you can subscribe them to this report. So if I come in here to this coach's report, I can pick a list of users that I want to send an email to every day, and every day these people will get that link to that report. So they don't have to think about, I mean, we actually had people say, oh, well, they're not going to go open their browser and click the link if it's bookmarked. So this will send them an email every day with a link to the report, and they can be subscribed to more than one. If a user has access to published reports, they can come in here and subscribe themselves to any report that they want. And if to subscribe, they just click subscribe and they're on the list. Now, every day, I'm going to get a copy of that weekly setup report into my inbox. If I want to unsubscribe, I simply click this, and now I'm off the list. But as the owner of the report, you see here I own 2 reports, I can then manage the entire subscription list as I see fit. So a nice little feature that we put in there. And currently it is every day. If you want it less than every day, then I would encourage you to just do the email link and teach people how to bookmark that on their browser. But that's what we've got. We kind of just opened it up and said, here it is every day. So, but okay. I'm just looking at the chat window here, see if there's anything else. But So again, you can subscribe yourself to it, or you can, as the owner, manage that subscription. So, all right. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over to Wendy for some other communication tools.
All right, thanks, Dean. Let me share my screen. And can you see it? Dean or Brian, can you see
Yep.
my screen?
Yep.
Very good. All right, so the two communications tools that I'm going to talk about, notifications and scheduled emails. So first, notifications. How do you set them up? Top right corner under Profile and Preferences, Notifications. So I am set up to receive notifications about any new requests that come in, any events from my colleagues, other event planners or global administrators, and anything pertaining to catering. Here's how you add other service providers that you want to be notified about. Now, if you do not see these bottom two, that is because you went live before we added these to Mazevo. So if you do want to use those, send an email to support at gomazevo.com and we will turn this setting on for you. Okay. Now, these notifications go out every 30 minutes.
Yep.
All right. And then the next thing that I want to point out is that the simplicity of it is this, that if I have this box checked, notify me about the following service providers catering, in the email, it will be about new orders of catering and changed. So you don't have to set up yet another notification. Notify me about changed catering. Notify me about new catering. It's one. It's easier to test, easier to set up. And let me show you some examples of what they look like. So here's one: booking changed, resources changed. I'm going to come into this one because I want to show you what it looks like to the recipient. I click on this. So this shows me resources changed, and I can see if I hover over it, what the change was, who did it, and when. All right. So I changed the quantity and the time. And then, of course, I can go to this resource history tab and see that as well. Okay. Brian, do we have any questions about notifications?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. Now, I do want to point this out. This is a new booking. So an event planner or global administrator created an event, and I'm being notified that they've done that. And then this one is a new request. So it says right in the subject line. Okay. All right. The next communication tool I want to talk about are scheduled emails. Those of you that came off of EMS, they're the equivalent of group notification rules. So let me come in here and show you what I have set up under my scheduled emails. So here's some examples of what can trigger a scheduled emails: either a service, catering, etc. Always. Event type can trigger a scheduled email, a location, and I have two here, one for the entire building and one for just a room. So I'm going to send a survey out when they request, or after the event has occurred, if they've booked the Stroud conference room. Attendance is another trigger. So in this case, anything over 100 people will trigger a notification or a scheduled email, I'm sorry. And then this one is manual. I can just manually add it on. I can actually manually add on any of these, but nothing triggers this one. So let me just show you how these are set up. I'm going to drill down into this. Don't forget to order your catering. So here's the description. This is the subject line that the customer will see, and you can see that you can put in the event name and the booking date by using this legend over here. And then here is the message that will be in the body. And of course, I've put a link to the catering menu. It will go to the primary contact, but you could also have it go to the secondary or the billing contact. This is going to go out always, regardless of the event, because I have it triggering off of always, and it's going to go out one day before the event. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you what these look like. All right, here's the example of what I just showed you. Catering order needed for the HR interviews on Friday. The customer opens it up. Here's the message that they see. And then the link to my all-time favorite catering company, Taco Bell. Okay. Any questions about scheduled emails? Oh, and by the way, these go out at 2 in the morning Mountain Time. So these are not every 30 minutes. These are daily. Okay.
Wendy, can you show us where those end up on an event? Could you open an event?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just see. I've got. Right here on this tab. There you go. And then you can see who it will go to and if it's been sent or not. Okay.
So what happens, folks, is when you create this event, whether it's a requester or whether an event planner is building this event, those triggers will automatically add those scheduled emails to that event. But the add scheduled email button there is how you can manually add other ones at this point. So once you get those set up, they're pretty much fire and forget. They'll just automatically get added to your events as necessary. So
yeah, and this one I think is just scheduled for manual, or I mean, this was configured just for manual, so it's nothing would trigger it. I have to manually add it. Okay. Do we have any questions? I don't see the chat, so.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, over to you, Brian.
Ask. Okie doke. Thanks, Wendy. Let's see. Get my screen up here. Where did you go? Okay. There we go. All right. In a second. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about the confirmation. The confirmation is, as you probably know, the main document, the main tool that you use to communicate with your customers, right? And so I just want to go over some of the tools that are in there that you may or may not already be using and talk about a few of those. So I've got an event up here, this first principles training. I'm going to go ahead and generate the confirmation so we can look at the document here. And okay, so some of the basic things with this, and you all probably already know this, header and footer messages. You can customize those, you can add those in configuration, and then they show up here, and you can pick when you want to apply them. Now, if you look at this event, it already has this external thank you note on there. So when I configured this message for my confirmations, I said, by default, just put this on all my confirmations. And that's why that one came up there. So you do have that option. You can turn that on or off on what messages you just want to automatically appear each time. And then if you'd rather just pick them, like my footer message here, I've got a few different ones. And so then I can, pick the appropriate one or ones for my event. You can pick more than one. So if I want to put a signature thing on here or something, I can. So that's how you can add your messages on. And then if we look at my document and scroll all the way to the bottom here, those are the two messages that I put on there. So again, I think probably most of you already are aware of those. And then the same thing applies when you go to email this confirmation. You hit the send button right up here, and you've got another bunch of messages that you can create here. And those are your boilerplate ones, or of course you can just type something in. And you can attach documents to this. You can add other recipients, but by default, the primary contact is always selected right here. And then you can select these other contacts in case you're curious, like why are these other people showing up? These are all contacts that are associated with the organization that booked this meeting. So even though Jasmine was the one that booked the meeting here, these are all other contacts associated. So if I wanted to copy some of them or whatever, I can do that. So again, these are all pretty basic things, and then you just send it off with that. And so going back here, I just wanted to point out a few other things that are maybe more subtle, people weren't aware of. This button was added somewhat recently, in the last couple of months, I believe. This allows you, when I click this button, it actually just copies the link to this confirmation to my clipboard. We were getting requests from some customers that they wanted to put a link to the confirmation in an email that they were composing outside of Mazevo. Or maybe they had an email chain already going back and forth with a customer, and they wanted to reference the confirmation there. So you can now copy the link to this confirmation and put it into another email that way. So without that, what they were doing is they were creating the PDF, downloading it, attaching it to their email. It just made a lot of steps. So now you can just copy the link, put it in there, and away you go. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was this confirmation template up here. So confirmation templates, they were originally designed for a few reasons. One, you can use them if you have like a couple of departments that send confirmations out of the system. A common scenario we see is you might have an events department that generates confirmations for the customer, but then you might also have a catering department that works with you as well, and they like to generate their own confirmations. And so what this does is it changes the header information up at the top. So it'll, if I change it, I've got a whole bunch set up in here. And if I choose my catering one, it'll change the header up there and put catering up at the top and their information, things like that. You can also use this to generate a banquet event order. Banquet event orders are just another, they're somewhat common in certain operations, but basically it takes this confirmation document, and for each of the bookings on it, it prints it on a separate sheet of paper, essentially. So depending on how your operation runs, some people like the banquet event orders for their internal staff to use, and that's how you can generate those in here. But another thing that's with this that you may not be aware of, I actually learned this from Kimberly at the University of Texas. She did a webinar for us earlier this year, and she mentioned how they use this for things like when a request is denied, or when they're sending out a quote, or they send people a final notice. Maybe they haven't heard back from somebody about their event and they want to get their attention. Because what this does, I'm going to change this one to tentative estimate right here. And when I do that, notice it's going to change the wording that appears right here. So I'm just going to use this tentative estimate one. It's going to regenerate the confirmation. And it may or may not leave the header the same. I mean, this could be identical. Your address and everything might stay the same. Oops, sorry. And then, but this tentative estimate right here, that's what's changing. Now, it doesn't just change it on this document. This is also going to change it when I go to send an email. So when I send the email out, I'm going to generate that the same as we did before, but I've got an example up here. Can you all see my email screen up here? Am I sharing that? Okay, cool. So this is what it looks like. I sent one of these previously so you could see it, but in the subject line, it's actually going to put that tentative estimate. So whatever words you put up there, like tentative estimate, confirmation, request denied, whatever that is, that appears in the subject line to the customer. So that they can immediately see, oh, okay, that's what this is about. And then it always puts, this is the name of the event. So it always puts name of the event followed by whatever you're calling the confirmation document, right? And then of course their event ID from Mazevo. And then it appears again in the body. So I can see, okay, this is my tentative estimate. And this is your text that you added on to the body of the message. They can see their bookings down here. And then again, it's used on this button. And when they click that button, that's going to take me to the confirmation document at that point. So, so just be aware that it does more than just change it on the document, because that's kind of the way I always thought about it, at least initially. And then I heard how they were using that, and I just thought that was a creative use for that, and can kind of help you with processing your events and communicating with your customers, that kind of thing there. So, so that one is, and I'll pause here. There's some questions in the chat.
I think we've got them here. So.
Okay, perfect. So, all right, so we'll go back in here to this. The last thing I'll show you with the confirmation is, I think, again, this is probably something you all are aware of, but under the emails in the history, this is where a history is kept of all the confirmations you send out of EMS. So if you're sending confirmations, like the one you saw me send here today, it logs it for you, and it shows you who sent it, who it was sent to, and any message you typed in there. So that's automatically stored in Mazevo. The other question we get quite a bit is, who does the confirmation come from? So if we go back to this message here, this is what the customer sees. The customer is always going to see the name of your Mazevo tenant up at the top, your organization name. So whatever's appearing up here, that's what it looks like the email's coming from, right? But you can change the reply address on here. So when I hit reply to this, if I just reply to this email, maybe I have a question or something like that. In this case, I've configured mine to go to this events office email right here. And that's just a setting on the confirmation template itself. You can say, when I generate these confirmations, I want the email to come from this office right here, whatever. And then that's what'll show up. So just so you're aware, that's kind of how you configure that if you need to. So, all right. Are there any questions on the confirmation stuff? Not, I will keep on moving. I've got one other thing I wanted to show you. Let's see. All right, so the next communication tool that I wanted to talk about in here is this messaging that appears up here. So we get asked some questions on messaging, things like this. This is, we put this in a few years ago, and just to let you in on a little secret, it hasn't been used as much as we thought it would be. So I'm hoping today, maybe you can give us some feedback on how you might think of this as being more useful to you, or things we could do to maybe make it better. But I don't think, first off, everybody's aware of exactly how it works. So I'm just going to show you an example. So one of the things you might be noticing up here is I've got this alerts up here, and there's a little number 1 next to it. Now that gets my idea. I'm going to click on it here in a second. But before I do that, I want to go over to Data Glance, because in here, you may have also seen there's this unread messages. So funny enough, this number 1 and this number 1 are actually tied together. They're the same thing. It's alerting me that I've got some messages that I need to attend to here. And if I click on this, I'll see where the message is from, what event it has to do with. And it's with this alumni networking event right here. Got one message there. So I can click into it and see it. And so what this is showing me kind of some back and forth on this event. And so I just put in some sample messages ahead of time, just so you can kind of see how it works. But the way this works is it's designed to be for any event planners or global administrators. They can message each other back and forth inside of Mazevo about a particular event. So these are all messages that have to deal with this alumni networking event right here. And this is the, kind of the back and forth conversation. And so I can, I can send a message that way. And what happens is Susan here, who I'm communicating with, it's just like texting, right? It's like Susan in Mazevo is going to see that little bell light up right here. And she can just click on it and she'll see what the alert is when she clicks on it. Now mine already went away because I'm viewing the message. It goes away right away when we do that. But Susan would see, oh, I've got something. She'd click on that or go to the day at a glance like I did and then see what I had put in there. So it's any event planner can get to it. Also, you can go in and let's just open this event. There's a button right here to do that. So all of this history of messages appears under the messaging tab. So anybody who opens this event is going to see all the details. And if they go under messaging, they're going to see this back and forth that's been going on right here. So you can always access it that way. Now, when you are starting one of these, you just can type in who you want to start a conversation with right here. And let me open an event that actually I was in previously. Go back to my alumni, my first principles training here. So this one doesn't have any on it yet. And so I can, by dropping that down, it's going to allow me to choose what other Mazevo event planner or global administrator do I want to start talking to. So I can say, oh, okay, I want to start talking to Dean here. And I hit start, and then it opens up a little chat window. And now Dean and I can start messaging back and forth on this event right here. So, I can type whatever I want in there. It'll go to Dean. He'll get alerted. He can write back. And it is basically real time. I mean, the little alert will light up in real time when you get a message back, things like that. So if you're working in Mazevo, you'll get a little alert on your bell right there. The other thing we originally envisioned with this was that you could message a requester with it as well. So if we open up an event that has a request on it, let me go in here. Let's see, I think I've got, yeah, here's one. It's debate club meeting. So Claire is my primary contact on this one. She's the one that put this request in. So if I go to messaging now, it's going to kind of assume I want to talk to Claire because she's the primary contact. She's the requester on this. So she actually has a Mazevo account that's configured as a requester, and I can message her. The downside of this is that Claire, unless she's checking Mazevo, she's not going to get an email or anything letting her know that we've messaged her. So we understand that's probably why, that's not going to be the best way to message your requesters. And we're probably going to be shifting that up and how that works here at some point. But anyways, that's kind of how it works. Be totally open to questions, or if anybody's using it today, anybody on this call that's tried messaging, that's using it, you got any feedback for us? All right. Do we have any questions on that?
Yeah. There's a couple questions out here. If you went back to your day at a glance,
Yeah.
There's a couple people going, hey, you have more stuff on your day at a glance than I've got.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. We want me to explain that?
yeah, explain how they kind of get some of that stuff.
Yeah. So usually what people see, the bookings, I think, shows up for everybody, and requests, if you're doing requests, you're going to always have that up here. This next one is if you're using approvals. If you haven't configured any approvals in your Mazevo system, we're not going to show that to you. So I have approvals configured. Approvals are, another word for it is secondary approvals or workflow. So if you're in an organization where before you can approve somebody's event, you need to have someone else in your organization take a look at it, like your audiovisual team, security, somebody like that. They need to go, yeah, we can do this, or no, we can't. You can actually manage that workflow process in Mazevo. And if you have that configured, we're going to show you this approvals right here. So you can monitor and go, hey, have they gotten back to me yet and given me approval on that big event for next week? I would be able to monitor that with this in day at a glance this way. That's what that's there for. Tasks is up here. If you've configured tasks in the system, tasks are like to-dos or reminders, and you can put tasks on events. So you can have either a reminder for yourself or one of your staff members. Hey, you need to follow up with the customer and do this or that, or check with the vendor about ordering, whatever for the event. You can set tasks for people. And as you can see, I'm very delinquent in my tasks. So if I click on that, I've got all kinds of tasks that are out of date here that I need to start working on. So things like, sending confirmations or whatever, but you can create tasks for kind of anything and then attach them to the event that way. Unread messages, we just talked about that. Oops, why did I go back there? So that's what that is for the messaging. And then these last two are if you're using our academic components. So if you're importing classes in here, we're going to show you that. If you're not doing that, those don't appear. So, right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll clear something up. Somebody asked, is the messaging feature available to approvers? And I mistyped it in the chat message. No, they're not. At this point, it's really between event planners and event planners and event planners and the requester. But we'd love to know whether somebody would see this beneficial, between, let's say, an approver and an event planner, or event planners and service personnel. If you were a service worker, service manager, somebody doing the operation stuff, whether that would be useful. We could look at that. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, we got one vote that messaging to service providers.
Okay.
So
Good.
that would be an operations person, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest advantages of this, if we go back into this alumni networking event, if we can do this in a way where it's truly useful to people, having this on the event and being able to reference back to it, like, any kind of information that you've decided or something like that, and being able to see that conversation and have a history of that, we think would be really useful. It's just a matter of notifying people appropriately, making sure they know when they have a message and they can respond to it, and capturing all of that in there. But I think there's a lot of potential on that. So. Right.
and then JC asked the question, I don't think view-only event planners can use the messaging.
Actually, I think we did something, because there's this. I remember we put this here.
Yeah, but I don't know whether that's there for.
Yeah.
It might be there. Well, JC, we'll have to get back to you on whether a view-only event planner can see the messaging. Just
Yeah.
need to test it real quick.
Yeah. They might not get this open event button on that. So,
Yeah, there was a question from Deb Bryan. It said, it might be nice to discuss the difference between first level approvals, like event status, versus the second level approvals, like resources, if you let web requesters ask for resources.
Yeah. So like if we go back into, I'll use this one right here. I think this one had some on there. This event here has some approvals on it. Now, this isn't the best example because this event's already been fully confirmed, right? But if we can imagine that it just came in, it's a request, I'm reviewing it for the first time. I could go under this approvals under here, and a couple of approvals were triggered automatically on this event. So I'm kind of the first level, right? I'm the person who's opening this event, looking at it for the first time. Are we even going to do this thing, right? So I can kind of see this information. And then once I've reviewed the event, I can see, oh, look, they've got some AV on here. Here's the AV down here, microphone, laptop. You know, it's like, oh, okay, it's got an AV setup. I need to hear back from AV. That's why Mazevo put that on there. That came on there automatically. That's just triggered. And same with the conference center. That's based on the location that they requested. So in order for me to approve this, I need to hear back from both of these people and go, are you okay with this? And to do that, I just hit this activate all right here. So when I'm ready, if I've looked at it and I don't see any issues, I just hit this activate all. At this point, they get sent an email that says, hey, there's an event you need to look at. So if Dean's doing the AV approval, he gets emailed, hey, you need to go check Mazevo. There's an event that needs your approval. And he's going to flip this to either approved or declined. And he can put a note in here to me, maybe on why he declines it or something like that. So that's kind of how this works. So it keeps it all in Mazevo, and you've always got a record of who's approved it, when did they approve it. If you're still waiting on it, you know, you can ping them again and go, hey, you know, I need an answer back on this kind of thing. So.
Don't we have Kathy Smith to thank for approvals?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Kathy. Yes. So the people that use it really love it. They seem like, you know, it's works well for that kind of process. So. Right.
I'm curious if anybody's using scheduled emails.
Scheduled emails. Anybody using those?
Anybody? Oh, good. Good. So a couple people are going to start using them. Great.
Good. All right. Well, if there are any last questions, feel free. You can also unmute yourself at this point. If you have questions, we'll can just talk to you directly that way, or you can keep putting them in the chat, whatever works.
Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There is one more from Carrie. Is there any future update that will allow overnight notifications to be customized? Sometimes I will get a request after work hours, and then the reminder about the request comes in the middle of the night.
Mm.
Coming in the next morning, let's see, I've got this. Where'd it go?
Yeah, at the moment, we don't have any way to set the timing for those. They all go at the same time in the middle of the night. Now, a new request, you're going to get notified about that by email in 30 minutes, right?
Yes.
Within 30 minutes. So.
Yeah, she said coming in the next morning to 2 notifications is a bit much.
I have a question.
Well, back to the, hold on, Sarah. Back to that overnight, if a new request is coming in, you're going to get notified within a 30-minute window, Carrie. Right. So, I mean, it's not going to go out in the middle of the night. So if it's 7 o'clock at night and a student puts a request in, you know, between 7 and 7:30, you're going to get that email that said there's a new request. So. But okay. Sarah, let's go back to you.
Thank you so much. So in regards to the event question triggers, I was playing around with that recently, and I do really appreciate the availability for the question, or I should say a previous event question answer to be the trigger for the next question. But it seems like you can only do that to one previous question. So for example, I've got multiple tenants within our system. So I want to make sure they're only coming to our rooms. And then the next question will be, how are you paying for this? And then I want to filter down into another question as well off of how they respond. But right now it seems to be limited to just one waterfall, essentially. Is
Yeah,
that something that we're working on adding more or additional trigger filters?
It's really not. That particular event question is what we call a dependent question. So one question is based on the answer to a previous question. The first question is what the location trigger or something like that. Then the second one would follow on to that. But no, you can't nest them like, how are you going to pay for this? Or, and then, oh, is it credit card or cash or, that next one. So you can't nest them more than just one level deep at this point.
Okay.
We know in EMS you could nest them and all of that. But again, kind of going with our configuration simplicity, we just gave you one level at this point. So now you can have multiple questions. So you could say, is the sky blue? Well, if the sky is blue, ask them this. If the sky is, blue, ask them another question. So you can have multiple follow-on questions to the same answer, but you can't continue to go deeper and deeper. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Just remind me. Okay, Carrie, you're talking about so what Carrie's talking about is if you're using the secondary approvals, and Kathy, you can chime in here, but we made it more of a nag message. So if you're an approver for this secondary approval process, right? So, hey, I'm in the police department and I review everything over 100 people. If you haven't approved that event in the middle of the night, you will get a message saying you need to approve this event. And every night it will send you that until you go in and approve or deny that particular approval that you're in charge of. So yeah, that little nag thing goes out in the middle of the night. You're basically waiting for the system to send you an email. You could go in and just check approvals in your day at a glance or under my approvals and see which ones are there waiting for you. Is another way to kind of circumvent that. So
Yeah, it sounds like she's intentionally like not going to deal with them maybe for the first few days, and you still
okay,
that nag email. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Those emails have worked really well for us. Our approvers have been like really spot on. I've only had one approver that is dragging their feet.
So, but Carrie, I understand if you want it delayed, right? Don't start nagging me about the approval until 5 days later or something. That's not in there, so we'd have to look at something like that. Okay.
This is Susan. I have a question on the approval process. When we have a reservation that has gone through and if it's a space that has to be approved by somebody, it goes through and then the final approval goes through, and then say whoever the requester was changes that reservation. That gets kicked back to that one step to that final approval, but it doesn't go back to the person who does the initial approval. Is there any way we can make that happen?
It on our system, on ours, it does do that. It goes to our approver and it says pending changes. And so it makes them reapprove it before I approve it as the final approver.
Yeah.
So are we missing something on our system for that?
Yeah, we might want to take a look at that because that's why we put that, pending changes in there that Kathy's talking about. So maybe it's not being triggered for some reason. We'd have to look closer to see what's going on there because
All right, I'm gonna run a test tomorrow and then I'll just let you know.
yeah,
Okay.
just let us know. And
Sure.
yeah, we definitely take a look at it. So
Okay, thank you.
And a couple of you have asked to have us turn on messaging. We can turn it on, but you might want to check with everybody on your team and then just send us something to support at Go Mazevo saying, okay, turn on messaging, and we'll get it turned on. If we turn it on now, it's, and then you decide, no, I don't want it. So just double check on your end that that's what you want us to do. It's really easy for us to turn on. It takes about 5 minutes. So. Carrie, my events as a global administrator, my events was really designed for a requester. Okay, so the closest thing as a global administrator would be to go into find events and say, find all events for a contact and then pick your name there. Once you do that one time, you could go in, save that as a view under find events, so that you could just go in and say, well, I want to look at my events. So, okay.
yeah, so Katya has a question about scheduled email triggers and being able to see an example of that. So yeah, we do have a trigger based on the service. So like if say there's a catering order on the service, that will trigger an email to go out. Now remember, the scheduled emails only go to the customer. Okay, so they will not go to your service providers. The scheduled email is meant to be something between you and the customer that way. So it would be something different to notify your the catering. Let's see. That's the way I'm reading that. If that's not it, let us know. But it sounds like you want the scheduled email to go to the catering department, maybe. And that's more the notification. Catering would go in there and they would say, hey, I want to be notified of new catering orders that are added. And then Mazevo is just going to send them an email every time that happens. So.
Carrie's got another question here. She wants back to the My Events. She wants to be able to see where that shows up as a requester. So Carrie, you could use our requester test mode and see how that works as a global administrator. Again, you don't really have any security policy tied to your account. So that's where the difficulty is. So if you used our global as our test mode, requester test mode, you should be able to go in there and see what that looks like. So
this is what Dean's talking about right here, this requester test mode. It's right up here next to your initials. And I believe you have to be a global admin to see that.
yes,
right? Okay.
yes.
So yeah, if you're global admin, you'll have requester test mode. You click that and then it will ask you, well, what security policy are you going to use to test? And you can pick, whatever one you want. And then when you hit this start testing, you're going to get logged out of Mazevo. You log right back in and you're now in seeing the world as your requesters see it. And you can go in and do everything exactly the way they do it. You can see it. And that's why we put that in there. So you can kind of see it firsthand the way they do.
And there's a question here from Nancy. Will you ever be able to run the event list by organization?
Event list by organization. Yeah, I don't think we have that filter, do we?
I don't think we have.
No.
No, you could certainly run find events by organization. That'd be the quickest way to get it, but it's not necessarily in the exact format of the event list. But in find events, you could do that and then export it to a PDF or to Excel and send it to them. So. Okay, Sarah, you just asked the same thing about the organization. Unmute yourself. I want to ask you a couple questions about that. What time period are you running, and why do you want the event list for a single organization? And Nancy, you can chime in here too. I'm just trying to get what's the use case behind that. So.
Yeah, I can quickly chime in. I'm newer to Mazevo, so I'm sure there are other ways to do it, but we have some policy around number of events or reservations within our system that certain organizations can hold. So it can be helpful to be able to look and quickly discern how many are in the system at one time, how many are present per week. It would feel like a shortcut, I think, compared to some of the other processes. But again, I do think we can route to it a different way potentially.
Yeah, let me help you here with that a little bit. The event list, you're going to have to run that one at a time unless we sort the whole thing by organization. And I think Nancy, her question is, I want to run it for a single organization one at a time. Nancy, chime in if that's not the right way to do it. But under find events, Sarah, what you could do is you could just come in here and say, I want to find all events for, to kind of go into your example here for this month. And then if you come in here and group, where's my, I don't have, you'd have to do it in advanced find events. So we come in here and let's just do it for, I'll just do it for those 7 days. But you could group this by organization. Oh, we took our group by out. Oh, geez. Well, you could sort it by organization. And then I've got all these classes in here. You could at least see for the period of time you're looking for, you can get a quick visual because you're counting those saying, well, who's got too many of these, right? Is that what you're trying to find somebody that's got 10 events rather than your limit of 5? Is that kind of how you're doing that, Sarah?
Yeah, that's more connected to how we use it right now.
Yeah. Another way you could get that right here is come over to your analytics. And if you're saying, well, this month I want to analyze organizations based on the number of bookings, and I want to see them all, this is going to do the count for you. And it's going to tell you, well, women's swimming's got 36 bookings, right? So that's another way. And then so all of the ones at the top of the list are your offenders. So that's another way to get a quick count over a period of time of the number of bookings.
You can group the find events by organization. I think
I
you just need to
blind?
refresh there. So
Okay. All right.
standard, yeah. Oh no, just all events. At the bottom.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So back to find events. If you do the group by, so that's here. And then you could do it right here. You can just quickly get your visual count there. So Nancy, back to yours. If you're just trying to find all events for one particular organization for a period of time, you could come in here and say, oh, I want to see the Alumni Association for this month. Boom. Okay, and then you could export that as a PDF or an Excel document, which this is a little bit more information than what's in the event list. You're going to get your status on there. So it's essentially the same. But
I can't talk very well today. This is Nancy.
yep.
But I think the thing that I'm missing when I do find events is I see the event versus on the event list. I see all the different bookings pertaining to that event all in one spot right on my screen.
Yeah.
So it's
okay.
seeing the bookings beneath the events versus just seeing the event itself is what I'm trying to see by organization.
Okay. The other thing you can do here, let me go back here to show you one other thing you can do in here. So if I do, show me the next, here, let me turn all of this stuff back off just to kind of ground you. So this is the next 7 days worth of events. Okay. If you just say group show as events, it's now going to collapse that. So women's tennis could have multiple bookings, but here's all of the booking, here's all of the events by organization. So if you sort here, you would see, but these are events at this point. So there's a little toggle, show as bookings, show as events, that you could use. So you might try that as an option.
I don't see that toggle.
It's under standard,
Okay,
and then whatever time frame, and it's going to be right up here next to the date.
okay, I was on advanced.
Yep. So that's only on the standard. So
Thank you.
yep.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I'm looking at our time. I see we've just overshot our time a little bit here today. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Love the questions as well. I'm glad we could get to a few of those. And keep your eyes open. Next month, we're going to be doing, and it might be even be early December because we're running into Thanksgiving next month, but we're going to be doing the next Mazevo Connect is going to be a product roadmap discussion. So we're going to be talking about the things that we're thinking about for Mazevo over, say, the first half of 2023. And we're going to give you all a sneak preview of what our product roadmap's looking like. We would love to have any feedback on those things on the product roadmap and what you think's really cool and what you think is not cool. And just any feedback you want to share there. So keep your eyes open for that. I'll be sending out a notice here probably in a few weeks on that. And anyways, I'll send out the recording for this as well here shortly. But thank you all for your participation today. Really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next month.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.